Okay, so I need to figure out a way of mounting this thing vertically. And so I'm thinking just bend those tabs down so that they're out of the way, and then screw an angle type bracket onto this plate, and we should be good. So something like that should do the trick. Just mount this into the right corners, make it the right size, then we've got places to mount our electronics, and we've got some way to manage cable, etc., etc. So yeah. Okay, so that should work right there. Just need to mount the carriage on it, and I think there's even room that the whole thing could fit in an enclosure, maybe out of cardboard or something like that, just to keep the bulk elements out and still have room for a bracket on the outside of that, or through it. Probably through it.
Okay, so we're going to have to make sure that we get that thing perpendicular. Drill in some pilot holes, and don't forget to deburr them, just for sake of neatness. Make sure that the screws fit before you start assembling things, and then bolt it all together. Now, we've got a vertical linear motion, and what do we need to do? We need to mount some eyes on it. So I have some sticks kicking around, so let's see if we can't figure out how to mount those somehow onto that carriage. And it shouldn't be too bad. So as you can see, I've got some smaller sticks here that I'm going to let into the ink holders. And the way I did that was I just dremelled out a couple of slots in the top two bars, or the top two plates, and from there it was a simple matter of cleaning up the holes and fitting as I fit the bars in. So careful little nibbling away with the Dremel tool got me two nice clean slots. I had to work from the top and the bottom in order to get the slots in there like I wanted them to be, but yeah, just little bits here and there. That angled bit worked really well. It allowed me to get in underneath the lip and create a fairly smooth cut. So once I got the bulk of it shaped, I just took a file to it and smoothed it up and finished up all of the edges so that I have a nice fit of that pair of plates. And what do I get out of that is a carriage. Now I'm going to put a screw through there, so that will prevent the sticks from moving up, and the bottom plate will prevent the sticks from moving down. And now it's time to figure out how to fit the eyes onto the top of that. And so we're just going to create a bit of a T structure and just eyeballing things up. As you can see, I've got the battery still stuck in the Hallowing just to see how long the battery will last. And as it turns out, I didn't use the battery anyways because the whole thing had to be plugged into 12 volts, and I just had to be plugged into line in order to get 12 volts and enough current. Didn't want to have a battery sitting out there for the whole time. So yeah, I ended up hardwiring those. So if I remember correctly, it was 32 millimeters between eye holes, but I measured that, and you can measure that too, and then figured out how much space I needed in between the two in order to have it look just right. So measured that up, and now I have mounted a pair of the standoffs, put the other Hallowing on there, and then we'll pop that T onto the pillar. Need to do a bit of drilling there, and pop the T onto the pillar, and there we've got it. And that's basically what it's going to look like. And from there, we just needed to figure out a bit about how exactly long that stick had to be, drill some holes in order to mount the T slots together, and then put a bolt through from the back side, And now we've got our mounting tee for our Hallowing eyes. Okay, now it just needs a wiring harness. Yeah, now did some test fitting with all of the stuff that I wanted to put in there. I needed to put a couple of speakers in there. The stereo amplifier is going in there, so I have a pair of speakers, and then it was just trying to figure out where to slot everything on that bench. The thing that I needed to find space for was a number of things. So first of all, I needed the place for the stereo amplifier. I also needed a place for the soundboard. So I got a piece of proto board out and was going to use that. And then at the bottom section of that proto board is going to be where the jumpers from the motor shield on top of the Arduino go. What I ended up with was a layout that had speakers on the side, and then motor control goes outside of all of the wire routing for the digital and for the sound. I've got power coming in from the front, which wasn't ideal, but it was all right. And then I'll mount the rest of the componentry on the vertical board. So after that, it was just a matter of finding JST connectors that I could use to power the Hallowing. Now, I went to the local electronics store, and of course, they were out of two conductor pigtails with JST 2mm connectors on the end of them. So I had to go into the box of batteries that I'd salvaged out of our battery recycling at work and pull a couple of those leads off of those batteries and then wire up a wiring harness for it. But once that was done, things were moving along pretty good. And so salvaging a bit of nice electrical cable out of the spare parts bin, and that occupied a bit of time creating all of that. So now I've got some soldering to do, solder up the wires, make sure I put some heat shrink on them, make sure everything all sticks together all nicely and is gonna stand up to some fair amount of cycling, because that thing's going to go up and down, up and down. I just wanted to make sure that there was some strain relief on them. So I also put on some shrink tubing on it, etc., etc. And then salvaging some more of the JST connectors, because that's how I was going to get power off of the motor board to power the daughter board of this build. So remember the daughter board has the sound sampler as well as the amplifier. And make sure that I shrink up all of my heat shrink tubing, and there we go. So now what's left is to figure out where the wiring is going to go relative to the movement of our vertical. So I put that inside of a wire wrap cage, just so that it would protect it a little bit from the stresses of things going up and down, and wouldn't tend to not get caught on the speaker and whatnot. And then figured out exactly how I was going to mount that inside the box so that it would have unrestricted movement, but it would have enough movement so that it could go up and down. Yeah, and now some soldering and some laying out on the perf board. There was a lot of soldering for that, and a lot of cutting of wires, and it was a very late night, I have to say. But it was a lot of fun. So while I was editing this, I realized that I had not taken a picture or taken any video of it actually working. After assembly. So basically I got myself a power supply out of the junk box, and you plug it in, and then it goes through its boot up sequence. The eyes light up, then it pauses while the sensor acclimates to the environment. It gives a boot signal, and then it is ready to roll, and then it'll detect motion. So after a delay.
Only 61 more days to do your Christmas shopping!
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
That candy's gonna rot your teeth. Have more.
So I recorded a few samples, made a little box out of like cardboard and duct tape, or not duct tape, but packing tape, just to protect it from the environment,
That candy's gonna rot your teeth.
and buried it under some leaves by the sidewalk. The sensor was poking out of the bottom, and so it comes out of the bottom of the leaves. You hardly notice the sensor at all. And had the leaves not been so wet, I would have glued some to the top of here, so that when the head pops out, it would have made even more of a surprise. But as it was, I think it still worked.
Why have you woken me from my slumber?
So improvements that need to be made are a better amplifier for the speakers, because it's a little bit hard to hear,
Why have you woken me from my slumber?
especially outside when there's fireworks and things like that going on. So yeah, that's the silliness, and I do think that this is now the stupidest thing that I've ever built. And thank you very much for watching.